Hello and welcome to another episode of Laying Down the Lore 40k, a lore podcast in which we aim to separate our Drukhari from our Dark Angels, our Tyranids from our Tau, and our Craft Worlds from our Chaos Marines, and generally ask, what's up with this Warhammer 40k stuff? My name is Ben Crone Barber, and I know pretty much fuck all about 40k. With me is my co-host, Christopher Crowlin Allen, who's waving.
Oh, yeah. Hi, yeah.
Who knows absolutely fuck all about 40k. Who's put his thumbs up.
Oh, yeah, no, true. Yeah.
And my dear brother Darren.
Hello, I'm about 87%.
God, who knows so much about 40k, it's a wonder he has time to do anything else. Over the years, this dichotomy between our levels of understanding became clear, and this series is an attempt to address that ignorance.
Hooray! Here we are again.
Yay.
That's the spirit, fellas.
Given the subject matter for this episode, I'm just going to speak in a monotone voice all the time.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah,
that is
it's
exciting.
the Welsh. Ha!
the space Welsh.
Space Welsh. The Swelsh.
Sci-fi Welsh. What would be their characteristics?
Just fucking Welsh in space, mate.
Just fucking Welsh in space.
Really high technology, really advanced culture, but they start and end every sentence with the phrase "boyo." Boyo, that's no moon. That's a space state. Why is he Indian? I don't know.
You're in a little bit.
Sorry, everyone.
Sorry there, mate.
Sorry. No, I upon reflection, that was a terrible thing to do.
That was terribly racist.
All right.
It was the French. No, what?
Do we know what topic we're covering today, Kral?
Monotone voice is going to be... Oh, I don't know. They've all got monotone voices, haven't they? They're all very...
Who foreigners,
dull.
Chris? Dial
Yes,
it back
yes.
in, mate.
In the 41st millennium, there is only monotone voices. That's the tagline, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a race completely made up of that really dull priest from Father Ted in the lingerie
I have
aisle.
a really boring voice.
Right? Yes. Beep.
Amazing. Right, before we crack on, thank you to everyone who listens. That's you guys. And thank you to everyone that supports the show.
Hi, Mum.
Hi, Chris's mum.
Lame.
Don't call Chris's mum lame. She is a saint. She makes a mean Christmas dinner as well. I could have taken that in a terrible direction. I'm so glad I get that PG. If
You're a knob.
If you like this drivel and you want to support the show, you can do that in a number of different ways. There's Patreon, which is a jolly old platform where you can chuck us £3 and we'll give you access to our Discord. And you can come on and chat with other people that also like the show. And they're all a little bit mental in their own lovely ways. We're on there as well. We're relatively active, I would say. Some more than others.
I make cameo appearances.
Yeah, but they're golden.
This chat was sponsored by Kralin.
Yeah. And when you do, it's like, okay, well, that was worth the 3 month wait for that, you know?
That's it. That was totally worth the £3 a month subscription.
Exactly. I mean, that's always been the limit of Patreon to date. But, Dar, if we were to, throw a couple of extra quid onto that Patreon, is there anything else that we could get?
I don't know. A completely new, Patreon exclusive, extra hour of content a month, bastards.
Hooray!
We are doing, if you're familiar with our
meant.
Chunks of Dar bonus material, we are doing a show we've entitled 40KO'd, where we strip apart any sense of professionalism we have and just really go at it hammer and tongs in a kind of Fight Club style over, but with information.
Yeah.
But basically it's the same thing. It's just Kral and I trying to find things that you've said and make you look stupid.
Yeah, cut everything I just said and use that.
Yeah.
You didn't need to agree so quickly, Chris. That really hurt my feelings.
No.
And this bonus series is presented by Dar. So
Yeah.
that's new.
Ooh.
That's new.
So
Krell and I
it's
are
a
pure
proper
backseating
shit
it.
show.
Dar driven, Ben and Krell operated. That's
Dar
the form of that
supervised.
show. Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to listen to that, you can. I'm going to say you can gain access to the full back catalog. It's probably not relevant right now because it's just released, but in a year's time,
You have access to 100% of the material released.
Perfect. There
Yeah.
you go. That's the one. That's what I should have
All
said.
of it.
So yeah,
all of it.
Get,
All 2
get
episodes.
on there. If you're already on Patreon, you can obviously upgrade the tier. If you're not on Patreon, what you're doing with your life, sort it out. Come and help us so that we can keep making the free stuff for you. In addition to that, we've got merch. We've been over the merch thing before. We've got a bunch of stuff, including Kral's face, on stuff, t-shirts, mini skirts, tapestries, the whole 9 yards.
Get my face on it, buy it, wear it, put it on your fridge, whatever. You know what I mean? Just
be the
top
be the talk
quality.
of the town. Be the talk of
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
have you made peace with your face being on internet purchasable mirth? Mirth?
merch.
Mate, I relish it now. I'm going to be like...
He's leaning into it.
I'm going to be as immortal as, like the Andy Warhol... Warthog? Andy Warhol, like pop art stuff. You know what I mean?
Andy Warhol. Now I would go to that gallery.
Krell, I am totally going to make an Andy Warhol painting of you and put it on a t-shirt.
The garish,
the 4 different
contrasting,
colours. Perfect. Excellent. That's new.
Do me.
Watch out for that next episode, guys. We will have Krell Hole.
Andy Krell Hole.
Krell Hole.
Oh dear.
And finally, if you are into the hobby, if you like to make stuff, paint stuff,
Touch stuff,
build stuff, touch stuff, manipulate stuff, glue stuff, and smell stuff, you can get hobby materials from our affiliates. If you just click on the Quartermaster link, which is the newly named supporters link, don't know why we called it Quartermaster, it just sounded cool, and you'll find all of our affiliates and support platforms. So,
Fucking A.
I
mean, shit.
I think that
amazing.
Went well. I think that was one of the better ones that we've done, isn't it? Concise as well, even though it only took 10 minutes. Right, Kralligator. You know what time it is, mate?
Citizen of the Imperium, it's time for frontal lobotomy or bottle in front of me.
Hey! Rumble for the Emperor. Krall. This is episode...
The Emperor Krall.
Emperor Krall. This is episode 28. What was last episode?
Orcs? Was it? We did a very short...
Wrong, it was 27. But yes, it was also about orcs.
Numbers.
Dar got it last time. He picked up on it. He alley-ooped me.
That's number one.
Okay, so how much do you remember about the last episode?
We're about to find out.
You looked really Asian when you did that. Like, really Asian.
Hi, ni hao.
It's your...
Before anyone sends me any hate mail, I'm a little bit Asian, all right? I'm allowed to say ni hao. Yeah,
okay.
All right.
So is anyone who can speak Chinese? I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
that's not the Chinese N-word, ni hao. That's not how that works.
Ben, quick, go.
Go before this gets out.
Yeah.
And another thing.
I'm just muting Darren right now.
Yeah. Turn them off. Okay, question 1, Krall. What is the name of the Mad Max-style orc armies? That doesn't work grammar. That's terrible grammar. What is the name of the Mad Max-style orc army that accompany the Evil Sons?
No, there's more. It's armies. It's plural. Grammar Nazi.
Okay. Well, I was blaming
Bad Moons.
No. It was it a sect? It was a group within one of the tribes.
Yes. Yeah.
So the Evil Sons are the tribes, but it was one of the little the
Goths.
No, they were like mad bikers and like
I'm
moon
just
buggies and-
reeling off some orc tribe names that I remember. The Blood Axes.
No, they're all
No.
they're all the tribe names.
Give him the
Okay.
first word.
Cunt. I mean cult.
Cults
Actually, the first word is the.
of
Yeah. Cult
the
of.
cult of not excess of. It's not excess, is it?
No,
There's a bomb
no.
on the bus, Chris. There's a bomb on the bus.
Okay. What do I do?
Don't let it go below 50 miles an
do
hour.
I panic or do I not panic? Do I leave it in? Do I pull it out? What do I do?
It was the cult
Just
of
move into
speed.
the house, don't blow it up.
The cult of speed.
Yeah.
Ah,
Now
yes,
you get the bomb
cult
on the
of
bus
speed.
reference. Good lad.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you one for that.
Yeah.
So,
They're generous.
what is the? I'm not giving you one for that. I lied. What is a runt herd?
A runt herd. Sounds hilarious. Is it a runt herd? Something to do with squigs? No, it's not anything to do with squigs, is it?
Right, I'm changing it. We're doing orcs again. This is just bullshit.
You're in the right kind of. I know where you're going with the squigs thing. You're in the right, the wrong being, but the right idea in terms of.
Okay.
Yeah.
The runt herd. Boars? As in their mounts?
Who would orcs consider to be runts?
Snotlings.
Yes.
There
A
we
bunch
go.
of snotlings.
So what's a runt herd then?
It's a squad of snotlings being bossed around by some orcs.
So it's an orc odd boy that farms.
It's an orc odd boy that farms snotlings.
Yeah. So like
And grots, yeah.
and
Yeah,
grots.
grots.
Yeah.
Is it like a nursery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a herd of sheep.
Yeah, nursery of sheep. That's what I said.
Nursery sheep, yeah. We're basically saying the same thing, Darren. Yeah.
All right, Carl. Final question. Who is the prophet of Gork and or Mork? The prophet of. If you can pronounce this, you are a fucking superstar.
Oh, I don't know. I forgot we did episode 27. We listened to episode 26 for production reasons.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So I can ask the questions about episode 26. I don't know.
Do you want a clue? It was in 26 as well.
I'll give you a clue. No,
Margaret Thatcher.
What kind of sound would you make if you got your toe trapped in a door?
Ah!
That's not a far throw from the answer. I'm going to attempt this, and Dar, can you pronounce it?
Ish, yes.
Right. Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka.
Gazgakul.
Gazgakul. Okay. Mag Uruk Thraka. Is that right?
Yeah. Gary Margaret Thatcher.
Also known as
As he swings in. It's Tarzan.
the orc formerly known as.
Oh. Right, well, Crow, that wasn't a great one for you, but I'm going to blame.
Mate, no.
I'm going to blame your dedication to the production process and the listening of episode 6 for that. But you're down to 65, and I've got a funny feeling we're going to get a message from Randall anytime soon now. So
Yeah, your women's intuition is tingling, is it?
yeah, man. Yeah, I would just enjoy. I'd enjoy that frontal lobe for a while
mate.
longer.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking forward to just being ignorant as fuck, and
I'll make a nice
put it with your shit anymore. All this, responsibility and stuff in my brain. Yeah, no. Bring on the lobotomy.
Bring it on. Right. Well, that's us. I think we've suitably mangled that.
I'm done. Yeah, man.
Excellent. Well,
Done.
I thought it went very well.
Thank you. But anyway, I am very intrigued as to what the monotone aspects of
It's going to be Adeptus Mechanicus, isn't it? Robots, monotone.
It's a good show.
I am a toaster.
We're going to start with an image that I've sent to the group WhatsApp, and this will be in the show notes, and it's going to give you the perfect idea of what we're talking about.
They are green and they are metal and they are Necrons.
Green metal orcs.
They are green, they are metal, they are Necrons.
Necrons.
It's the story of Jesus. Yes.
Amazing.
As the lads have quite correctly assumed, we're going to be talking about Necrons this episode, and indeed next episode. It's a 2-episode Necron Jackson. Ben, and a Jackson?
Nice. Yeah.
A Jack Necron?
Yeah, you've nailed that. No, it's a Necron Jackson. It's a double Necron Jackson.
It's my favourite thing that we've ever said that has now infected all of the members of the family. Sandy, our sister, has started using a double Jackson.
Love it. I love it. Do you know, I actually got that from a guy that I used to work with at Cambridge Wine Merchants. We used to work in the warehouse together, and he used to say it all the time. He's like, you drop a bottle of wine, he'd be like, well, it's a Smash Jackson. Just put that on the Smash Jackson sheet, you know?
We've all had too much wine in our lives and ended up with a Smash Jackson. So indeed, we are going to be covering Necrons. Darren, who are the Necrons? Mind your own
Who's
business.
the Necron? Okay.
No. So Necrons are effectively the dead, the undead of the 40k universe.
Cool.
So for people who have listened to our fantasy offering, first of all, our deepest apologies. Second, if you listen to the first 2 or 3 episodes of the Vampire Counts, yeah, where it's talking about the Tomb Kings. These are the space Tomb Kings. Ben, that would shorten to Spittoon Kings.
Yes. Yeah.
The Spittoon Kings.
Spittoon Kings. I just want to say before you go on, I'm going to make a prediction for the end of the episode, or the end of next episode. I reckon Kral's going to really dig these guys. I think you're going to love them, mate.
Really?
Yeah.
Challenge rejected.
Okay.
So they
shutting up.
So these.
This is not up Chris's Jackson at all.
Will you leave your Jackson out of this?
Yeah.
That is the improper use of a Jackson.
Oh, damn it.
So this is a robotic skeleton. Sorry. So it's a robotic skeleton. It's just one. But it's just, there's lots of it. No. So, yes, as I say, it's robotic undead Tomb Kings who are also undead. It's heavily kind of influenced by notions of pharaonic Egypt. So this is Egypt before Alexander the Great and the Ptolemaic cultures. The Ptolemaic Jackson, I believe, is what it's professionally referred. This is a faction that was not in the first edition of 40k, and indeed was only added at the very end of second edition via an army list in White Dwarf, specifically number 216/217. Mr. Whoever you are.
Ben, laying down the lore. Before they added them to the end of the second edition, you know how you said that they released kits that allowed you to convert fantasy minis into sci-fi minis? Did they do that for the existing undead fantasy minis? Was there a sci-fi precursor to the Necrons?
No, there was not. And while you're correct saying that there were plans to release conversion kits for fantasy, which is why a lot of the early Rogue Trader miniatures have the same weapons across different cultures, they were never released to the public. So they were a kind of in-house release to try and speed up the production of miniatures. No, they were a brand new concept, never seen in first and most of second edition. And in fact, the very first Necron miniature was given away for free with issue 217, back when Games Workshop gave miniatures away for free.
Cool.
And it was the jankiest looking thing you've ever seen in your life. It was, the sprues.
Loved it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely do. Do you know the sprues, the kind of frame within which these kits, the components are put? It was effectively someone got a load of sprues and glued them together. That's what it looked like. And gave a sort of Egyptian-y necklace or neck covering to it and painted.
And here's your
it blue
fucking
and
Necron.
gold.
Bam.
Yeah. Necron. Ben is Googling, so we're about to get a confirmation or denial.
I am. Jesus Christ. It looks like Bender. From
Yeah, it really does.
Futurama.
Angry
over.
Bender. Angry,
Hold on.
spiky Bender. And so we're dovetailed into 2nd edition, and then we're completely revamped for 3rd edition.
Right.
Wow. He looks adorable, doesn't he? He's
It
like,
does, doesn't it?
I'm so fair.
Please insert girder.
In yourself.
Oh,
Yeah,
brilliant.
there's something a little bit like he looks like a fat T3.
Yeah.
You know, from
yeah.
Terminator.
Has he just shat something out as well? What's that under him?
A
Like
brick.
laid a Necron egg or something.
Hang on, let me look at the goddamn picture. That's a stone.
He's got like a Mr. T vibe about him. Like
Yeah. He's
With
even
his,
got a little
like,
mohawk.
big old necklace. Go like, I ain't getting on no plane.
Yeah, I ain't getting on no spaceship. I pity the Imperium.
Yeah. Is it my turn to do a racially insensitive catchphrase?
Hey,
No, we're catching up,
the
mate.
Baracus.
You've used your
The
racially
Baracus
insensitive quota
belongs
up.
to all of us, all right? He's our hero.
So when they were first released as a faction, they were very rules light, and it was lots of those individual Necron warrior miniatures plus some scarabs, some kind of robot scarabs,
Some dung beetles. Robot dung beetles.
that kind of idea. And it was almost like a PvE style encounter, if you see what I mean. They were NPCs
Ben loved that.
rather than
Love that.
Yeah.
a playable force.
There's none of that
Um,
competitive rubbish. No.
Yeah.
Easy mode. Story
Something that's
heavy.
gonna-
Action light.
I want basically a guaranteed win. That's what I'm in it.
They were
yeah.
they were the mystery grind of the Warhammer 40k universe. That was when they were first released. They did have an army list and some additional miniatures. Specifically, it was a Necron destroyer, which is back then it was a Necron warrior in a triangular shaped hovercraft, and that hovercraft had a big cannon on it.
Nice.
You then had the
Good stuff.
Immortals,
Love it.
who were like the elite, the big heavy trooper elite warriors, and and they were led by a Necron Lord. And all of these miniatures are available on eBay for 400 times the price of what they were originally.
Wow.
What's 400 times free?
£6.
Okay.
You could get a very straightforward army list, and it was quite playable, but they have something called Gauss technology or Gauss technology, which is their main kind of type of weapon. And what it does, if you're hit by it, it peels you like an onion, one layer of atoms at a time, like very quickly. And
Wow.
so it's incredible. The way it's described, not by me because I'm halting and awkward, but it's an incredibly agonizing death that takes about 2 or 3 seconds. But you feel everything.
I can imagine it looks like the scene out of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where the Nazi guy gets melted by the Ark. No, it was the Lost Ark. That would be the film.
The Lost Ark, yeah.
Not the Crusades, yeah. He just kind of went, "Wah!" and just turned into a really shit 80s like Play-Doh skeleton.
Wax.
He whacks, yeah.
Put an incandescent bulb near him. Ah!
Not the halogen.
The main shtick of this Necron force was these are beings that used to be sentient, were transferred into these bodies, and are now mindless automatons, except for the lords, who retained some semblance of a personality.
Right.
That was the
And all the
original.
anxiety that comes with it.
Yeah, well, no, when you're a robot, you don't have much anxiety, except about rust, maybe. So in 3rd edition, they were, as a force, were performing some sort of harvest of, it turned out, psychers. this has since been retconned, but it's an interesting point because it raises up a specific troop type. As part of their 3rd edition army list, they saw an expansion of forces. Scarabs became swarms of scarabs that could eat a tank. You had tomb spiders, which were very, very Matrix-inspired style robots. So the tomb spiders were the ones that kind of tended to the tomb worlds where the Necrons slept. You had what were called wraiths, but are now called canopic wraiths, are these like the squiddies in the Matrix movies.
Oh, yeah.
But they have a capacity to kind of dip in and out of reality, so they could move through things and kind of flank
Bamf.
enemy troops, that kind of stuff. But they did have a troop type called a Necron Pariah, which was, it was never explained how they did it, but it was a mixture of Necron technology and human pariahs who have the pariah gene, anti-psychers. So it was
Necron human Jackson.
a Necron Psyker Jackson.
Excellent.
And then within 4th and 5th edition, all of what I've said went away. So there was no real point in talking about it other to give you context.
And you love 3rd edition, Darren, as we all know. So
I absolutely adore 3rd edition. And it was the only army set, the only complete army box I ever bought was the Necron 3rd edition.
And that's saying something, box. Right, Ben? That's saying something.
That is saying something. I don't know what it's saying, but it's, saying something. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I opened myself up to you fuckers. It's just outrageous.
I know.
Right. So what we're going to do now is go back billions of years with a B in 40K.
Oh.
And we are at...
Bibillions of years.
Bibillions, yes.
Bibillions.
Bibillions. And where are we, Darren? I hear you cry. We are at the moment after the Big Bang.
Wow.
The universe. And if some, Ben's a big physics head, so reality itself has just been created. And at the moment of creation, beings came into existence.
Necrons.
Bam, Necrons. Join us next episode where beings came into existence made of electromagnetic forces and plasma. And these were the Catan. Now, we've heard that word before, as it's the sword weapon of a Kalidas assassin from the Imperium. So it's a liquid, like the liquid Terminator in Terminator.
T3.
The sword is that it just kind of flows out into a sword shape and then flows back. So very good, very flowy sword.
And this was required at the beginning of time, was it? You needed to be armed, pack and heat.
No. That the connection comes later. So all that's happening is these beings now exist.
Yeah.
They're self-aware, so they are a sentient being, and are capable of moving through electromagnetic waves and forces and fields and other, mysterious physical phenomenon. And to cut a short story even shorter, they are conceptually star vampires. So they drain the energy from stars to survive, to keep themselves
going. How do they do that?
going.
They sink their teeth into the neck of it.
With a straw crown. Just
really fucking long.
They form
an electromagnetic straw. Thousands of miles wide, right into the Capri Sun. Starpedo. They starpedo. That's how they eat.
That sounds horrible. Nice. Don't say that word.
And so for the Catan, material reality meant nothing. They were completely indifferent to anything that wasn't a ball of, galactic fusion. And so planets were ignored, comets were ignored. And as civilizations came into
Picky, aren't
being... Yeah, very picky. Fussy eaters, Chris. I blame the parents.
Yeah.
They ignored any kind of sentient life because they didn't recognize it as anything. You know what I mean? It was like, well, there you go. It's like finding out a jellyfish can talk. They would be shocked. They would be absolutely horrified.
I just want to correct myself on something I just said earlier, because I think I said the Terminators that we were talking about, the exoskeleton thing was a T3. I don't think that's true.
It's a T100.
Is it the T100?
T1000.
Okay, cool.
It's 100 or 1,000. Millions, billions.
Well,
so,
millions, billions.
Hundreds of millions of years later, perhaps billions,
who knows?
The first civilization gains the capacity for interstellar travel through various means. And these are the old ones.
The Aeldari, the old ones.
Nope. The Aeldari don't exist yet. Nothing that we would recognize in 40k except for... not even the Necrons exists at all. So it is a pristine virginal universe before Slaanesh tears out a new one. The I don't know why that made me laugh. I'm sorry. Oh, step Slaanesh, what are you doing? No, move on. So the old ones, a reptilian species. What you need to have in your head here is the lizard man faction from Warhammer Fantasy. It's that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
So they are largely recognized as the first intelligent beings in the Milky Way, astounding grasp of astronomy and physics, so much so that they do that Arthur C. Clarke thing where any of their technology actually looks like magic. And indeed, confusingly, they also have magic. And they begin creating a huge network of warp gates so that they can travel through the galaxy instantaneously. Some of these will eventually be connected, and this gives birth to the... Ben?
Fated place?
Way
the Polar Gates?
of Webs.
Oh, the
Chris has it. The Webway.
Sorry.
Shame.
Mate,
Where's that woman with the bell? We need shame.
But in theory, I mean, if you did believe the whole, Tau within the 40k universe, that would be one of those gates. The Polar Gates would be one of the...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not. So you're wrong. So fucking sit down. Get out. Shut up.
But as a concept, that's actually correct. That's what you hold in your mind when you think of the interdimensional way gates that these old ones have and use.
Excellent. Yeah, shut up, crap.
And as they spread their influence across the entire galaxy, they begin seeding intelligent species. I don't know if that's direct.
They begin what? Sorry, the comms was a bit fuzzy then. They do what?
Seeding.
They go down to planets and seed them. I don't know if they're actually finding suitable beings there already and, have sexy fun times with them, or genetically engineer them. Probably genetically engineer them. Lizards aren't really into sexy fun times.
Right.
It was earlier times, though. Do you know what I mean? Life was still finding its feet. It's like, wrong hole.
Yeah, morals weren't really a thing, were they? Just
no. They came billions or billions of years later. Yeah.
It's a long time to come. It doesn't,
Giggity.
Sexy isn't really a concept that had come up by that point. Do you know what I mean? It was just the thing that they did.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why so many beings in the galaxy are afraid of lizards. It wasn't exactly consensual.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this.
Just move on. Don't even segue.
As they are spreading their influence across the galaxy, they encounter another civilization called the Necrontyr. These are a humanoid race living on a planet that is being bombarded with horrific amounts of radiation and solar energy. So their lives are well, it's
Shit.
quoted as saying they're marked by an early death, but we don't know because races live different amounts of time. So they could be living thousands of years, and that's a short life for them. Do you know what I mean? So, but they're living a truncated life, plagued with cancers and all kinds of ailments caused by the huge amounts of radiation that's washing over their planet. All this, so they're effectively living inside a nuclear reactor. That's the kind of levels of
awful.
horror. Yeah,
It's an interesting. I don't want to be kind of critical, but it's an interesting direction to go with that, because if life had evolved on that planet, the very nature of evolution would have made them resistant to the thing.
There's no room for common sense.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And also another thing. It's relative, isn't it? I mean, like, if you were born and brought up in the middle of a nuclear reactor, you don't know any better.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
you wouldn't be like,
oh,
and they
man,
died
I
early.
wish-
It's like, how did they know they could live longer if that's the only place
Yeah.
they lived?
Maybe
Like,
they lived
this is-
underground.
Yeah.
Maybe they did. Okay. All right. Underground. That solved it. Yep. Moving on.
Underground. So ultimately, it gave rise to their entire civilization being a death cult. You know, much like we view ancient Egypt as being obsessed with the afterlife, the Necrontyr's lives were so short, in quotes, and horrific that it gave rise to this amazing religious belief that there was this glorious afterlife as long as their tombs and necropoli were tended to. So you end up with the planet becoming more like a tomb, like a cemetery, than a kind of thriving civilization. But this is not to say they did not have technologies, and rather advanced technologies. It just meant that because of their truncated lifespans, the evolution of the technology had to happen really quickly.
Right. Okay.
It's like where you've got a dirty house. I'm just pulling a theory out of the air here. So you've got a
There we
dirty
go.
house, and you've promised that you'd clean it, but instead you played a computer game, and then you hear your wife's car park outside, and then you do a staggering amount of cleaning in like a 30-second phase. And then you think to yourself, well, why didn't I do this at the start? And then I could have relaxed. But then you go, no, that's stupid talk. Yeah, it's
No,
that
because
kind
my
of
life's
level
relatively
of speed.
short. I've missed Darren's analogies. Do you remember we used to get them a lot in the fantasy episode?
Yeah. It's like if you can picture. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
That was
one,
it. I had
exactly.
nothing more.
No, you stopped yourself from saying things with 6 breasts.
Yes. That thing. That thing.
So they were able to create ships capable of traveling within their solar system, and then they created these almost like arc ships, you know, that kind of concept of a stasis ship, where it was quite slow, but they were able to get the crew to a new world where they would then
And not
be
live on
reawakened. Yeah, and
the living hell that they were living in currently. Yeah, okay.
Kind of their situation on their home planet kind of reminds me of the alien race, the Santi from Three Body Problem. Kral, I know you've read the first one, and they live on a planet that has 3 stars rotating around it, which have this chaotic, incalculable orbit. And so they go from kind of deep freeze to kind of roasted to death regularly. And the generationally, each generation gets wiped out because of some major kind of planetary disaster, but they still manage to survive. And so they kind of develop characteristics based on that. I mean, in the books, they're portrayed sort of as humans, but yeah, a similar sort of vibe. Okay.
Again, same thing applies to, like, if that's all you know, if that's the only lifestyle and environment you know, I mean, for all we know, we're living in a hell. I mean, I know we're quite happy and
Yeah.
content, but relatively speaking, like, how do we know that some place called heaven doesn't exist, where there's like eternal bliss, eternal pleasures, no
Yeah.
stress, no anxiety?
There's no night. Nobody
And
needs to sleep.
by comparison, we're in a living hell. You know, we're living in
Yeah.
the nuclear reactor.
well, this is taking a very existential turn.
Yeah, but it's a great topic, man. It's an interesting...
You know, it's all relative.
Anyway, Necrons.
Necrons.
Yeah.
So as they expand, I'm going to send a second image via WhatsApp, and it will pop up just now, and I'll put it in the show notes as well. It's the kind of galactic map of the Necrons. Now, this is a map for the 41st millennium, but I'm using it to illustrate that they were able to get across the entire Milky Way galaxy and set up their own little empires and colonies, which are referred to as dynasties, keeping it with the Egyptian theme.
Cool.
So what you ended up with is...
like JR.
Yes.
No? Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. No. Okay.
I'm thinking more along pharaonic dynasties, yes, from Egypt.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
it's the... I love the idea that there are Necrons with big white Texan hats.
Yeah, man. Who shot JR? Necron. JR.
It was a space marine. So
Is the green hue because it's all radioactive? Do you think that's where the birth of that?
no,
That kind of styling.
it's the color of their gauze or gauze technology. It's green
okay.
energy. What you ended up with is one race with sweeping control over most of the galaxy. This then gave rise to kind of factional leadership and breakaway colonies from the Triarch, which was the governing body of all Necrontyr. And so the Triarch is a council of 3 pharaons, who are the kind of larger leaders of dynasties, or leaders of larger dynasties, is the correct grammar. And they are led by the Silent King. It's a hereditary title, so it stays within the same family, but because of their truncated lifespans, it changed dynasties as well. But it was the leader of the Necrontyr was the Silent King.
And he's not actually silent. It's just every time he begins to say something, someone interrupts him. He's like, and anyway. For some reason.
I just love the idea of a very kind of powerful Necron King sitting there with his arms crossed, just ignoring everyone, no matter what's brought before him. We need you to do this. Did you hear that?
Was Terra populated by the Necrons? Were there any Necrons on Terra back in the
Moving
the
on?
days?
So the Silent King, the last Silent King, was called Zarek. So Zarek was the last Silent King of the Necrontyr, who saw it into its final days. And its final days came about because of a succession war. So there was huge jockeying for position within the Necrontyr dynasties, and then you had interdynastic wars, which were hugely costly.
It's a Beastie Boys track, isn't it? Interdynastic, planetary. Interdynastic. But
another dimension.
banger.
Another dimension.
Amazing.
I just love the idea that they're singing Another Dimension and pointing to the Eye of Terror.
I feel a parody music video coming on with us as the shit Beastie Boys.
Oh, it'd be amazing if we had 2 titans fighting in the background. That would be amazing.
Hello, darlings. It's Lanesh here. I don't know about you, but after a long, hard day of debauchery, I need a strong and reliable cleaning product to help get rid of those filthy, dirty stains out of my clothes, hair, furniture. Well, everywhere, really. So, I indulge myself in hog polish. Brought to you by the creators of Juggabuff. Hog polish is the brand new cleaning agent. Safe enough to use on my home and my body. Hog polish contains unctuous nectar extracted from my very own gardens and has the stamina to punish even the toughest stains, and yet be so gentle on the flesh. Hog polish lathers up thick and gets in deep to cleanse every inch of your body. So, whether you need to purge the excess from your sofa, buff your hog, or polish your jugs, choose hog polish.
So you said that there was the three pharaonic
Pharaohs,
leaders.
yeah.
Are they under the Silent King?
Yes. So
Okay,
you have
But louder.
and each of those three leads a massive dynasty. So it's the way for the Silent King to have the most powerful adversaries he could possibly have with him at all times.
Right.
Maybe with them at all times. They go to the bathroom together. Who knows?
Right. Okay. Interesting. But so when the Necrontyr expanded beyond, obviously they're now galaxy wide.
Yeah.
Is there any information about did they still retain the kind of negative traits that were imbued in them as a result of their home planet? Like, did they ever evolve past the kind of degradation they experienced from the radiation?
A great question. I think the short answer is yes, because that's one of the factors involved in these great dynastic wars. Is you had beings that were now free of the kind of impediments of their home culture, and so they would come to have very little in common culturally with their home.
Right.
You know, like in a big shtick in hard sci-fi for our solar system is that as soon as we colonize another planet, it's going to rebel.
Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of, we have nothing in common with you and da-da-da-da-da. It's that shtick, yeah.
Right, okay.
So we are now on the precipice with the first succession war of the collapse of the kind of galactic control that the Silent King has. When all of a sudden, and I can't believe they didn't bump into them earlier, they meet the old ones. And so they did encounter them previously, and it was very kind of a cool interaction, if you know what I mean. So it's people who have faced death their entire life versus people who have no emotions. Lizards who have no emotions. So, you know, it's a very shark-lion situation, Ben. I'll give this one to you.
Yeah.
There's a very little in common.
Fucking boring is what it sounds like.
Was it a hostile meeting?
Yeah. Like the neutrals from Futurama.
If I die, tell my wife hello.
I have no strong feelings on the matter one way or the other.
Yeah, it's a beige alert. Over the kind of several interactions, or several hundreds or several thousands of interactions they have with the old ones, they become incredibly jealous and resentful of the old ones' advanced technology and the fact that they won't share it, because the old ones were largely immortal, you know, and could travel vast distances very quickly and had extremely powerful weapons, none of which the Necrontyr had in the kind of same ballpark. They had weapons.
Had bags of jealousy. That was the only thing they did have. Ah, I want that.
Hand me my saddlebags of envy. Yes.
Yeah.
So we see not only external kind of resentment and pressure in the interactions with the old ones in the Necrontyr, but the kind of interdynastic planetary
Don't let me sing again. Don't make me sing
it. And ultimately, what Sarek realizes, the Silent King realizes, is that there's an opportunity here to bring together all of the dynasties with an external threat. And so it sees the Necrontyr initiate the war in heaven, as it's referred to by the Eldar, where you have a total war in the kind of von Clausewitz kind of style of thinking, where it's a war of all against all. And Zarek offers amnesty to any kind of dynasty that seceded from the kind of Necrontyr empire, and a staggering war happens using horrific weapons that strip the life from planets, that in some instances destroys stars and whole star systems, and in other instances cause kind of reality warping effects from these larger weapons. Mr. Ben.
Sorry, so this is a war between the Necrons and the old ones, yeah?
Yeah, Necrontyr. Necrons don't exist.
Yeah, sorry, the Necrontyr and the old ones. Sorry, I may have missed it, but with regards to that initial meeting, was it in any way peaceful and then it fell apart, or was it just
it's the second? Yeah, it was. They were not necessarily amicable, but it was neutral. Beige alert kind of stuff. They did. They recognized and acknowledged that the old ones were far more advanced than them, but that's the resentment and the envy is the impetus that the Silent King used to start the war in heaven, to unify his kind of crumbling empire.
Right. But the old ones were open to kind of peaceful coexistence.
Yes, with limited to no interaction and no trade whatsoever. And it was the trade that really pushed the Necrons or the Necrontyr over the edge, because
the old ones refused to share their technology.
Refused to give them life-extending technology, refused to give them faster or a capacity for faster star travel, refused to give them any kind of weapons of any kind, that kind of thing. So it's, it was like the prime directive. Do you know what I mean? They didn't want to get involved in the advancement of the Necrons or Necrontyr at all. Mr. Chris, sorry.
I was just saying, like, the Necrons didn't have anything valuable to trade, did they?
No, not really.
That's the definition of trade: the exchange of goods and services.
Lump of radioactive rock, maybe.
Right. That's where we're going. I will trade with you. What have you got to trade? Jealousy. And,
this radioactive rock. How about this tomb that we made full of our dead mates?
Exactly.
How about this tomb, also made from radioactive rock?
Exactly. Yeah. Can we have some spacefaring technology, please? What, for some rocks? I see where the old ones went. You know what I mean? I could see how this trade agreement went.
Yeah, they just went, well, you'll have to fight us for them.
Well, maybe the Necrontyr didn't home in on the thing the old ones needed. Surely the old ones could have generated some level of technology to be able to feel the emotions of others, empathy, if you will. So maybe the Necrons just didn't know how to sell, or Necrontyr didn't know how to sell.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't understand the meaning of trade. So The
war raged for hundreds of years. And ultimately, the Necrontyr were not only defeated, but exiled back into their kind of the home dynasties. A staggering amount of life lost. Some records say up to 90% of all Necrontyr life just vanished well, not vanished, was killed.
Wow.
Which is ever so slightly different. And as they were beaten back, it kind of drove them into xenophobic frenzy, where, a core pillar of their culture now was the hatred of all other intelligent life. The galaxy for Necrontyr, that was their, Necrontyr rights, Necrontyr power. This is getting very right-wing. Moving on.
Make Necrontyr great again. Yeah.
That behavior just sounds quite petty, quite primitive. We want advanced technology. We're not getting it. And now we hate everyone that's not us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because 90% of us have been wiped out. And really, in the heart of hearts, they knew that they were the only ones to blame.
Yeah. They went to war with a superior race with superior technology. They waged
because
war
of an unreasonable stance in a trade agreement.
Yeah, because they won't trade with us, even though we've got nothing of value for them to trade with. It's
fucking kill everyone.
You sound like pirates. Yeah, you sound like...
It's a great... there's a great case to be made that most of the decisions in galactic life, certainly in 40k, are driven by shame.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Welcome to a surprise mental health episode. Understandably, the lack of progress or destruction of their civilization drove a second succession war within the Necrontyr Empire. And so you start seeing again powerful leaders tear off from the Silent King, and facing the kind of collapse of his empire, the Silent King, and in fact the Triarch as a whole, sought to find another unifying thing. Mr. Chris?
Is the Silent King actually silent?
No.
No, okay, fine. Yeah.
No. It's an honorific, yeah.
He just actually won't shut the fuck up. It's an ironic name.
Yeah, he had Tourette's. Kill everyone! Oh, I didn't mean that.
No. So with the kind of need for another unifying force, the Silent King, with the help of his scientists, his advisors, have...
His scienticians,
they have become aware of the Catan, the star vampires. So they're aware that they exist and begin trying to communicate with them, and are eventually successful. And they build liquid metal bodies that can contain the energy of the Catan, of the star vampires, and give them a presence in the material world, which, as we right at the start said, the Catan had no interest in.
Sorry, did they exist in the warp then?
The Catan?
Yeah.
No, they were in our material universe, but had no interest in anything that wasn't energy.
Right.
If you see what I mean.
Everything's energy.
Moving on.
Shut up, you hippie.
So many holes. And everything in this episode.
Kumbaya.
And another thing.
Arse.
Why would you call the Titans of star vampires? That's like calling Tyranids biological vampires. Do you know what I mean?
Hang on a second. I didn't fucking call them star vampires. They're called star vampires.
I'm not angry at you. So
angry around you.
Finally. I'm angry at the information you are giving me.
I'm angry at the things that are coming out of your mouth, you son of a bitch.
What, my breath? Yes.
Yeah. Stop breathing.
And so, much like in... Let's get another analogy going for Chris. Much like in the... What was that? The Force Awakens? The number 7 in the Star Wars saga, the first of the new trilogy, when the Star Killer base thing drains a star into itself.
Oh, yeah.
That's the kind of level of effect special effect, if it were a movie, would happen as this star vampire descends and possesses this necrodermis, which is the phrase for the kind of liquid metal that the Necrontyr specialize in. And thus the Catan were manifested physically within the universe for the first time ever, billions of years after their birth.
Were they happy about that?
Well, they did it willingly by the sounds of it.
Yeah, almost all of them were. I mean, you can't. It's like trying to persuade a typhoon or a hurricane to, go this way instead of that way. It'll go that way if it wants to. Yeah, so it's they thought it was an interesting change. One of the Catan, Mephetrin, which sounds like a painkiller or a dysentery tablet.
Yeah.
Ask your doctor about Mephetrin. Who is known as the Deceiver, and in the lore is pitched very much as the devil in what we would understand in our own cultures.
Right.
He pitches an idea that promotes not only unity but immortality in exchange for his support of the war against the old ones, of the Necrontyr and the war against the old ones, which is weird. He's saying, I can do this for you if you let me help destroy the old ones. It's like, okay.
Yeah, okay.
What's the catch?
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
What's the catch? So despite the warnings from his astrologers and other advisors, he accepts the Deceiver's proposal and ends up in a firm alliance with the Catan. Now, there are hundreds of Catan now all over the galaxy within Necrontyr enclaves.
All manifested in these liquid metal
In the
jobbers?
necrodermis.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, very much they were like the godlike version of the liquid Terminator from the, insert movie name here.
Yeah, Terminator.
And so the Necrons came to worship them as star gods. They were star vampires. They're now star gods, even though they no longer have anything to do with stars. Way ahead you, Chris.
Was the manifesting into that liquid metal frame, say, was that a permanent thing? Like, could the Catan go back to their original energy form?
I don't know. I don't believe so. I think it was a one-way trip, although I'm not entirely sure the Catan knew it was a one-way trip.
Right.
Yeah.
It's got to hurt.
So therein lies the seeds of, what's the name? Deception.
Yep.
Thing, happiness, contentment.
Dick move.
What? Yeah. So immediately the Catan start giving gifts. They have a startling understanding of, quantum physics, of the foundational elements, the energies of the universe, and this is where you start seeing the gauze technology come into existence in various scales, up to and including weapons that would destroy stars.
Wow.
And maybe the Catan would have a cheeky nibble as the stars are destroyed. Who can say? Certainly not me. As part of this kind of deal, they offered them immortality and the kind of physical stability that their cancer-ridden, sickly bodies could no longer kind of keep up with. And replacing, very much echoing the Catan's journey from energy into physicality, they would come up with a way to bring the souls of Necrontyr into necrodermis bodies, albeit not as complicated, not as efficient as the...
Just jam it in there.
Fucking
shoehorn.
So they basically, we've got this big robot, and I'm just going to smash your face into it until you now inhabit. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. It's that. Yeah. You're just sitting here, you're gobbled down. You're eaten by your own robot body. Oh, the shame. So not only now are the Catan in a strong ally with the Necrontyr, they're now largely de facto leaders of the Necrontyr as gods. Mr. Chris.
So basically, the Catan gave everything the Necrons or the Necrontyrs didn't get from the old ones, or at least a lot
Exactly.
of it.
That's exactly what
Yeah,
happened, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
As part of the great working in terms of being able to give the Necrontyr not only the weapons to fight the old ones, but also the bodies and the lifespans to be able to fight the old ones, largely on their own terms, on equal footing. It required an individual Necrontyr to walk into largely a biofurnace where their body would be burned away and their spirit, their soul, their warp essence would be transferred into a Necron warrior body. Now, there are various types of Necron warriors, but if you can imagine that it's just into a robot body of some kind. And I can already hear people screaming, "Oh, they're not robots." This is a summary. Get over yourselves. So the entire Necrontyr race went through this process, leaving no biological inheritor of the Necrontyr race alive, in quotes, as they now lived on in living metal bodies. Unfortunately, because he entered into a deal with Mephetron, also known as the Deceiver, he was deceived. The Silent King realized he made a horrific mistake because despite gaining what was promised, despite gaining immortality, despite gaining weapons and ships to rival the old ones, the Catan, as these biofurnaces around the galaxy were in operation, the local Catan was draining almost all of the life energy from the Necrontyr as they were transferred. So you ended up with a lot of 90% of what was left of the Necrontyr were now just mindless robots, automatons influenced only by the kind of AI code that was at the heart of what would become the Necron, or what is now the Necron world, the Necron existence.
Wow. Didn't, when that process was going on, didn't, Julie from accounting, who was standing in the queue waiting to go in the biofurnace, spot, John from HR, who'd just come out the other side, was like, John, how was it? Was it John? And he was just like, bleep, blurp. And Julie was like,
I think classic John.
Yeah, Susan, I think there's something wrong with John. He doesn't seem to be. He's a bit more bleep
character
blurp
than he than he usually
He's a bit
has.
more bleep blurp than he normally is. Do you think this biofurnace is a good idea?
He used to be a bleep bleep kind of guy.
Much like really expensive therapists, I think they had an entry and an exit that were nowhere near each other.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So you wouldn't get in. But these were happening en masse. It was happening to thousands of Necrontyr at a time.
Right.
And effectively, it stripped the individuality out of an entire race, except for the leadership, who were given the, I suppose, command protocols required
+1 on their charisma.
Exactly right, to control the Necrontyr, or the Necron warriors. The Necrontyr no longer exist. I will now try not to say Necrontyr when I mean Necron.
Excellent.
Given that they had gained immortality, they were resistant to not only aging, but also the radiation, and they were able to recover from the strongest of injuries, the most devastating wounds, via what's referred to as the reanimation protocols. And this is a very kind of interesting thing, that if a Necron warrior, I'll keep using Necron warrior, but this applies to all Necron constructs. If they are damaged to the point where they're no longer be able to function, there is akin to a teleporter, and localized teleporter in their body that will teleport them back to a facility where they can be repaired and then go back into battle.
Cool.
So it's an endless horde very difficult to completely destroy a Necron. Extremely difficult to do so.
That's so cool.
What's
Love
the
that.
most devastating wound you can think of? Having your head split in half and set on fire.
Oh no, getting kicked in the Necron balls.
Yeah,
Oh,
in the net,
yeah,
right in the Necrons.
Oh.
A Necron Jackson. What?
Jackson. Would, like, I don't know, let's say you blasted them with like a fucking massive, like, broadside las cannon from a starship that just vaporized everything. There was just nothing left. Would that override the technology of kind of, would that kill?
Depending on which edition of the game you play, yes and or no. For a lot of the earlier editions, you had a 1 in 6 chance that the warrior would get back up and start fighting. Because it is necrodermis, they have some level of self-repair.
Right.
If they're damaged too much, they teleport back.
'Tis a flesh wound.
Yeah.
So is it
really
like,
they're the Black Knights of the Warhammer universe.
Is it like XCOM 2 sort of style, like really to kill, what are they called, the Chosen in XCOM 2? You have to go and destroy the thing that keeps reanimating them. So like
The healer.
No, because they have there's redundancy against redundancy. This was part of the promise of Mephetron, was the immortality, and even though they were deceived and the
you just turn them off and on again. Time.
We'll just turn them off.
yeah.
Why do we have to keep turning them back on? For fuck's sake.
That's what we're doing wrong.
It is. That or a big fucking magnet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How do they feel
that's
about
an interesting
magnets?
one. Could you essentially? I mean, you're not stripping them of their immortality, but if you lock them, could you disable them somehow so that
what do you mean,
redundancy doesn't? Well, like Kral said, like a magnet or something, it just locks them in place.
Or like
so
a Faraday cage, that kind of idea.
Yeah, exactly. So the redundancy system doesn't kick in, and they're not teleported somewhere else.
No, because they can effectively travel through mini webway tunnels back to their own factories or foundries or tomb worlds. Very, very difficult to completely,
Right, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Silent King, Zarek, of course, horrified at the reality of what's happened, but he now has a completely unified Necron empire. There's no chance that any of the dynasties will secede. The dynastic leaders, the lords, warlords, the pharaohs, they all still exist. They all are largely the same in terms of personality, as are all the advisors, the kind of important peoples of the Necrontyr. They all now have total control over their dynasties, over their respective dynasties, and so perhaps don't want to go back. Once you pick up power of that magnitude, very, very difficult to put it down. And so it was a poison chalice, but everyone got what they wanted out of it. No one can say that they didn't get what was promised, even though it was done in a horrific way.
Apart from the millions of Necrontyr, rank and file, who are like, well, they didn't think anything because they couldn't think. But if they could, they'd have been like, I did not ask for this. I was quite happy being squidgy.
That is not to say that there is not some level of cultural awareness within kind of the foot troops. Like, they've retained their complete hatred for anything that lives. It's an interesting opposite to the Tyranids, who want to eat everything living so they can make more of them. The Necrons just want to kill everything living because it annoys them.
That's nature in balance right there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
At this stage, even though the various Necron lords, including the Silent King, have their command protocols and control their dynasties completely, the Catan power is now so large that they're balling out of control. There are no obstacles to what the Catan can do and indeed do. Very difficult to say that without well, exactly.
It's do, baby.
So with this kind of buffed up culture, they return to the war in heaven, and they absolutely decimate the old ones. The old ones start falling back, and so we see a real role reversal. The great breakthrough is made when the Necrons create dolmen gates, guided by one of the Catan, which allows them to breach into the webway. So they now have access to the webway and all the webway exits, and are able to send huge armies against the old ones and their kind of lackeys. Chris, you had your hand up.
I did. So War in Heaven against the old ones. Whenever I think of the old ones, I just think of like there's 3 of them. What's the army made of? Like lizard people and slan? Lizard men and slan? Is that the main bulk of the army? And how many of the old ones are there?
There will be hundreds of thousands. It's a civilization in the kind of real sense.
Yeah, I just there's like 3 blokes. You know what I mean? No more, no less.
No.
The magic number. Yeah.
You went old ones. What's old? And then you looked at the 2 of us and went, the 3 of us. We're the old ones. I'm terribly sorry about the Polar Gate stuff. I just had my eye off the ball for a second.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a relatively, that's a small civilization in relative terms, isn't it? Hundreds of thousands. You say this isn't a millions, billions thing again.
It might be a millions, billions thing, but it's...
Okay,
yeah.
Right. Okay.
For brevity.
There was
a
significant number of them.
Ultimately, we get to see that the Necrons and their kind of Catan gods are now in charge of the galaxy, and the Catan starts stepping in more and more, where they are effectively, when they come across an old one or they encounter an old one, it's the Catan that drains their energy completely, because it's like a delicacy. It's like baklava. Catan baklava is what the old ones are.
Super sweet. Super sweet.
And so this process is what effectively wipes out the old ones within a few years. And so buoyed up by not only the life force and energy, but also the knowledge of the old ones, the Catan now become just absolute bores. They're so dull and power hungry that all they think about is eating and demanding worship from any race they encounter, especially from the kind of Necrons that are still have some semblance of individuality.
Yikes.
And do they get it? Do the Necrons deliver that worship?
Oh, yes. They have largely no option but to, because of the way that the biotransference happened. But what you start seeing is, much like the kind of secession wars of the Necrontyr, you get Catan infighting, where you have multiple Catan fighting against each other, killing each other. In fact, destroying each other and releasing staggering amounts of energy and wiping out systems, or that the Catan are within. And indeed, there is a Catan called the Outsider who was tricked by the Deceiver into consuming tens, if not hundreds, of other Catan. And, this being became absolutely engorged, tumescent with power. But that's for the deep dive. In their desperation, the old ones turn to genetic engineering, and that's where we start seeing the birth of races like the Aeldari, the Knib, which we've not come across, the Knib, but also a cheeky little up-and-coming race called the Krork. This is where all sentient, the kind of major sentient beings, including eventually humanity, are created by the old ones. And it's done so not only to get significant foot troops, cannon fodder, but also these races are born with a capacity to connect to the warp. So psychers, that's really why the old ones created life en masse in the galaxy is to harness the psychic abilities and use of warp power, which is still one of the Necrons' greatest weaknesses, which is why in 3rd edition you had the pariahs, which were anti-psyker. So you had that kind of arms race, if you will, to try and offset the damage. Ultimately, the galaxy fell into ruins. There was one more kind of horrific death knell for the old ones, which is something called the Enslaver plague. The warp at this stage exists. It has always existed. The Chaos Gods have not manifested. It will be millions of years before the Chaos Gods manifest. And as we've discussed previously, these are moments in human evolution that give, or human history that give it's the straw that breaks the camel's back for the creation of the Chaos Gods. That is not to say there are not beings within the warp. And one of these beings are this... a race of beings called the Enslavers. And these are parasitic warp entities that exist in the warp, but as part of their life cycle, they gestate within psychic capable beings. And so we start seeing a plague of these horrific entities. What's a good analogy? A good Chris level analogy.
Please.
In the first Men in Black, you had that cockroach guy living inside the body, took over the body of the farmer.
Oh, yeah. Edgar, your skin's hanging off you.
Yeah, it's exactly that. But it's coming in through the warp into the middle of their body. Eventually, it gestates, it explodes, and this enslaver being then is able to get into the real world, into the material universe, and basically does mind control. So it's like the Ithlid of the D&D.
What an entrance. Burst through. Ta-da!
Yeah.
Mind control.
Mind control. I didn't like that entrance. You didn't see it. I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
In your mind.
Look into the eyes, not around the eyes, into the eyes.
This is really the last stand for the old ones. They're genetically engineered defenders, all the Aeldari and the Orc and the Aeldari, the Krork, the Jakero. Have we talked about the Jakero before?
No.
These
Never
are
heard that word in my life.
These are available. There are miniatures for them. They're part of inquisitorial war bands. They are weaponsmiths and armorers of amazing capacity, and they are orangutans.
Really? The apes.
You rang Utang. Amazing. That's so funny.
And there you are. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. That is a creation of the old ones.
Cute.
It's an orangutan with a sci-fi backpack. Yeah. And they create, you know how like the orcs will, it's belief that powers their weapons, and they get some amazing weapons because everyone believes that these weapons
These
work.
guys power their stuff by denial. No, don't believe it.
Yeah, no, I didn't make that. I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
They can create like pistol weapons that have the power of like a las cannon.
Oh, cool.
And so like they create reality-defying armor. Mostly it's probably just shocking because like I can't believe he's wearing that armor.
Is that orangutan wearing clothes?
The kind of final ditch of creating these warrior species, the Jakero and the Krork specifically, to create amazing weapons and then, you know, bloody-minded foot troops to be able to stand up against them. It was just simply, it was too little too late. And with the loss of the webway, or loss of the ownership of the webway, they had very little means of getting their troops to where they needed to be. And ultimately, with the enslavers decimating their kind of genetic inheritors, the various races, it meant that the old ones simply lost control of their empire and either died out or went into hiding. It is believed into quite late editions, 7th and 8th editions, that the Slann are devolved old ones. So the Slann are old ones, but they're devolved old ones, which is an interesting take on it compared to the fantasy version. But the 40k Slann look nothing like the kind of fat brain toads of fantasy. They're more
Hypnotoads.
They're more like a weir frog, an Aztec weir frog, or were
Right.
frog. Yeah,
Much like the graphic on the early pack you sent us a screenshot of the other day, kind of like feather laden, armor clad, axe wielding against a person with a gun.
yeah.
Right, you got to admire the spirit. I mean,
yeah. He's got spunk. Oh, he's dead.
He's got spunk. Ooh.
Quick, shoot him
before he gets us. With the decimation of the old ones and the Catan now being very thin on the ground in terms of numbers, and the victory of the War in Heaven by the Necrons did win the War in Heaven. The concern for the Silent King now was the Catan, because the Catan were ruling with a necrodermis fist over the entire Necron race. And ultimately, they were able to build, or rather, the Silent King was able to build massive, like, hyper cannons of gauze technology, or gauze technology, imbued with weird temporal mechanics by their cryptex, which is their kind of viziers. One of the abilities of the Necrons in kind of lore, rather than on the table, unless you've got specific items, is the Necrons, and there's some evidence that while they were still alive, the Necrontyr had power over time, insofar as they could control their own perceptions of time. And there's some evidence they could control others' perception of time as well. So they could do... There's a lot of Baywatch running of enemies at the Necrons while they were zapping them. Mr. Chris?
Your point about the control of time around, in the context of going around the galaxy, just sparked a question in terms of the passage of time is going to be different in terms of linear time. So how we gauge... on Earth, we have 24 hours in the day, 365 days a year, because of the Earth's orbit and the spin on its axis. That's how we define time. How is time? I guess time will change. That linear concept of time as you go from even planet to planet. You go from Earth to Mars. There is going to be a different day. Is going to be the time of day is going to be, or the length of a day is going to be different, and the length of an orbit, the time of an orbit is going to be different.
Oh, I see. Sorry, you're making a broader point. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
No, I agree.
I just wonder, is that discussed or explored at all in the lore, or does it become a problem or of concern?
It's a fantastic question. I think that the way they get around it in the lore is they use Terran Standard as time.
Okay.
So they, all roads lead to Terra. So they have to do that.
It's Tuesday.
Yes. Yeah. But you've got the distortion of time when you travel through the warp. You've got, as you quite rightly say, the different orbital times for planets and systems. But that's why they use one standard. But you have planets where, one planetary day will be 9 Terran days or 9 Terran hours.
But everything is referenced to Terra just for simplicity.
Obviously, within the context of what we're discussing, that would have been way before Terra was an established, before humanity.
Sure.
So,
but it's a good point, well made,
Yeah, like the time. I'm guessing that's why they never. There's no reference to time as a calculated construct back then, because
that's where you have star dates in Star Trek, isn't it? I guess, because how do you coordinate like a planetary assault when you've got like a legion on Earth, a legion on Mars, a legion on a completely different solar system. And you go, right, let's meet at Tuesday at 12. Okay. Is that your Tuesday or my Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yes. So the Necrons go into open revolt against the Catan, led by Zarek and his command protocols. The hypercannons are used, and it not only destroys the necrodermis of a Catan, but it simultaneously turns it into shards. So it's like shattering
Prickly.
glass. So you end up with thousands of tiny shards of the Catan's necrodermis, each with some aspect of the personality of the whole Catan bound into that shard. And then almost all of those shards are placed inside a tesseract labyrinth, which is a time and space, it's like a pocket universe, a prison in a cube, a small cube that that binds the energy and personality of the Catan forever, or until the user wishes to release it, but they never do, really. They can open it every now and then.
Just have a smell.
Release a Catan shard for which there is a miniature, and we'll talk about these next episode. There are Catan
Sometimes
shard miniatures
just to get it, like
a
Catan
like
snow globe.
Yeah.
It's a snow globe.
Yeah.
Great.
The cost of this rebellion against the Catan, they are successful and they free themselves from the rule of their star gods, is that, again, millions of Necrons not only damaged up to the point of repair, millions of Necrons were totally and utterly destroyed by the weapons of the Catan, or the powers of the Catan, who, of course, fundamentally created the bodies that these souls now inhabit. Ultimately, within a few decades, Zarek recognizes that the Necron domination of the galaxy, the time of that has passed. There are now too many other younger races who are up-and-comers, who have capacity to harness the powers of the warp, which are devastating to the Necrons. And so, especially now, the rise of the Aeldari, he foresees, with a kind of machine code understanding, that the Aeldari will come to rule the galaxy as the Necrons did for a very short time. But he introduces the Great Sleep and has many of the Necrons' homeworlds or dynastic homeworlds become tomb worlds. Again, what you want to hold in your mind here is the kind of the baby farms, the people farms of the Matrix, but all these Necrons just standing in bays like the Borg. Again, another good analogy. And they're put to sleep for a specific amount of time. And that amount of time is 60 million years. That is how much time, give or take, that he believes, that the Silent King believes the Aeldari will rise and fall. And of course, he is correct.
But it wasn't 60 million years. It turned out it was 60 million years. What it was just a series of binary when he said it. Because obviously he wouldn't have, he probably didn't use years. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's probably
Terran
accurate.
years?
Galactic rotations?
Yeah. Cycles. Yeah.
Mr. Chris, you had your hand up.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So 60 million years of being asleep is a long time to be defenseless. You know, who's stopping the Aeldari coming and just like pushing them over like dominoes as they're standing sleeping, and they all just die?
The tomb worlds are protected by things called canoptek engines, and it's a play on canopic jars of our own Egyptian history, where the innards of the mummies are when mummies are discovered, they're usually discovered with a small box next to them, and that box has 4 jars in it. And in there are the heart, the lung, the liver, and I think, no, not the brain. It's another organ is in the 4th jar.
Testicles.
And so, testicles. a lot of queens had that 4th jar as well, which is very confusing. But they have these wraith constructs, which are like the squiddies. They have the scarabs, which go around maintaining the system. They have their own kind of
little rumbas.
Necron matrix. They're all plugged in to the tomb world. And the canopic spiders, or the tomb spiders, go around maintaining the overall infrastructure. But these are enormous city and sometimes world-spanning city, like a hive world, but under the ground. And they're almost always on dead planets. They're almost always on planets that have no atmosphere, no life, really, are desert planets, that kind of notion.
No
but a lot of them have...
Yeah.
But because of the amount of time we're talking about with these tomb worlds, some of them have been destroyed. Some of them, the AI that controls the process has been corrupted. There's a thing called the Destroyer virus, which is a corruption of the foundational code of Necrons, and it tricks them into believing that they are Necrontyr, that they are their origin. They are not machines. They are living beings, and so they try to look like living beings whenever possible, which means they skin their enemies and wear their enemies' skin.
Yikes!
Act natural. Flay that person and wear their flesh.
So as the Necron race is getting into these tomb worlds, Zarek decides that he will not join them. And he and his legions of Triarch Praetorians remain aware and alive. And the Praetorians go around and they patrol and protect the tomb worlds. And Zarek decides that he can't even stay there. So what he does is he leaves the galaxy. So him and a few followers head off outside of the galactic rim, and his final act before leaving is he destroys the command protocols his command protocols, and thus that filters down through the systems. So the command protocols largely disappear, and so no one being can control the Necron race. And as we start seeing with the lore in later editions, individuality starts creeping back in to Necrons.
Interesting.
Sometimes as basic warriors, very rare, most likely as kind of specialist troops, bodyguards, emissaries, that kind of thing. And
sounds like a phenomenal way to create new figures for Games Workshop to sell.
Yeah.
Clever.
So 60 million years later, the Necrons are waking up.
Windows XP chime comes in.
and we will discuss their more recent history and their structure next episode.
Well, bugger me with a Necron knife. What did you think, Krell?
Mate, fucking, yeah, cool. Need to learn more about them, but yeah, they've piqued my interest compared to the Orcs. I still love the Orcs, but like, because you thought they were going to be right up my Strasser, right up my Jackson, and I think I like them. Yeah.
And actually, I'll tell you what, I didn't expect to love that as much as I did. I don't think I said a fucking word in the latter half of that, because I was like, I am absolutely obsessed with origin stories. Like, let's go right back to the start. You know, let's get into the nitty gritty of it, and that's because it informs so much of the lore for for other races later down the line. But yeah,
and it's the origin of almost all of the races except for Eternids.
Yeah, because didn't you say the Orcs were basically, one of the theories at least is the Orcs were created by the Old Ones to go up against the Necrons, which I'm guessing we'll find out more about. Yeah. What are your thoughts of the Necrons? Because in fantasy, you're an undeadist. You love them. Do you love Necron as they are the parallel race in 40k, Darren? Do you love the Necrons?
Do you know what? I adored them when they first came out. Somewhere around 5th edition, I lost interest, but that was the same time that I kind of stopped playing regularly and just kind of dipped into the lore. But now with the recent, they were the kind of flagship enemy for the previous edition. I'm kicking myself I didn't get that box set because they're staggeringly good. And yeah, I'd be interested to see how they play fully in the new edition, given my distaste for the new edition. But I think as a story, I mean, it's the story of 40k.
Right.
In like played out writ large across the galaxy.
Yeah.
The Necrons are why the Aeldari exist, the Orc exist, humans exist, yada yada yada.
That's very cool.
Except for Tyranids.
Just a question: is that we just had our at the time of this release, it will have been kind of 3-4 months ago. We had our painting competition, and one of the entries was a Necron figure that had all this kind of green lightning almost coming out of him. He's kind of floating. Is that Catanish?
That is a Catan.
Oh,
it's a shard. Okay. It's a shard of a Catan, so it's a piece of a Catan.
It's not a Necron.
So is it a Necron? It's not part of the Necron army then?
It is part of the Necron army. The shards are used. They're controlled by Necron overlords, and that specific one is a shard of something called the Void Dragon.
Okay.
There is. I don't know if the lore has completely changed recently. I do need to catch up a bit on the what it'll be in the 10th edition, but there were 4 Catan largely still existent in the galaxy.
Right.
The way it's phrased in the previous editions is it's not entirely sure if it's they were exploded into shards, but a big chunk survived, or if one just hid. So you have the Deceiver, Mephetron, the dysentery medicine, is still around. There's who is the kind of undermining or underpinning concept of the devil. There's a being called the Nightbringer, which looks like the Grim Reaper.
Cool.
And is the source of the kind of personification of death in many of the races. There's the Void Dragon, the miniature for which you're referring. And then there is the Outsider. And the Outsider is the one who ate all the other Catan he could get his hands on after being tricked into doing it by the Deceiver. So we've not seen much of the Outsider at all. The Void Dragon, if I'm not getting them confused, there is probably the largest shard for that is somewhere in Mars.
I was going to say, because
it's believed that is the Omnissiah. That is the being that the Mechanicus worshipped before the Emperor arrived on Mars.
That's mint. That is absolutely. So the idea being then that the Void Dragon is it's somewhere on Mars communicating with the kind of in a Wizard of Oz sort of jam. Like
giant green head. Yep.
Yeah, he's masquerading as a god. That's so cool. It's all coming together.
So we'll get into the structure and troop types of the dynasties and the more recent events next episode. Yeah.
Jizz-tastic. Right, well, I'm going to wrap up. All right, that's all from us. Thank you so much for listening. Details and imagery for the topics we've discussed in this podcast can be found on our website at layingdownthelore.com. We also have all our previous episodes on there, release schedules, and merchandise. Delicious merchandise. Again, if you're keen to support this podcast, just click on the support us link in the description and give us all your Catan bucks. And do remember that our new bonus series 40 KO'd is now available on Patreon as well if you would like to upgrade your tier or join Patreon as a whole. We'll be back again soon, displaying just how little Chris and I know about apparently everything that started the 40k universe. And until then, goodbye.
See you later. Bye bye. Bye 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 bye.
Love you, bye.